During the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, Maher aimed his new rule monologue directly at the MAGA movement in the form of a blistering attack on Donald Trump's authoritarian impulses and MAGA's cultishness, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher was pretty good. He interviewed former Vice President Al Gore, who served under President Clinton. He had a panel which included Democratic Senator Adam Schiff. And then there is this new rule segment, which we're about to get into. But I do want to preface it, okay, because I understand that Bill Maher is rightly catching more flack after his controversial visit to the Trump White House. But I do think we should be nuanced and fair here. So I covered this, and I do think that Maher made some mistakes. I think that he is assuming good faith from Donald Trump when it's very clear that Trump was cynically trying to use him as a PR tool to launder his own image and try to court Maher, who is a relatively influential voice in the liberal commentariat, over to his side, as Trump has done successfully with so many others, right? But Maher has seemed to resist this, okay? Because Maher, in the episode since, has gone back to relentlessly criticizing Trump. So there seems to be mounting evidence that Maher will continue to be principled when it comes to Donald Trump. He recognizes that Donald Trump is objectively worse than any Democrat, any liberal, any progressive, and he recognizes that the Democratic Party is objectively better, despite its faults, than the Republican Party. And he seems to be sticking with this, okay? And I want to offer additional evidence, which we should find encouraging, because even though Bill Maher drives me nuts with his culture war takes and his interest, what about trans athletes and relatively niche issues which should not dominate the political space, I do think it's good to have a relentlessly critical voice against Donald Trump, as many of them as possible. Okay. And Maher seems to continue to want to be that. So we're going to play some of these clips and unpack it together, starting with this.
And finally, new rule, Republicans have to stop excusing all the dictatory stuff that comes out of Trump's mouth by saying, he's just kidding. He says stuff. When Trump proclaimed last year that if he won re-election, he'd be dictator on day one, Republicans said things like,
I think it was a joke.
It's entertainment.
We all know Trump uses unique expressions when he explains things.
Yeah. Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune says when Trump talks about running for a third term, he's having some fun with it, probably messing with you. Yeah. When I challenged Ben Shapiro here on Trump being too dismissive and reposting that Liz Cheney deserves to be tried for treason, Ben answered sarcastically, wait, he said shit? That's crazy. Donald Trump said shit? This is such an interesting position for a political party to take about their leader. Trust us, there's nothing to worry about. Our guy is just full of shit.
So again, starting with this, he's talking about MAGA's cultishness, and they're willing to make excuses and grade Trump on a curve. This is something that and I know many of you have complained about as well. Imagine if the shoe were on the other foot. Imagine if this had been President Obama, and he had said a fraction of the things that Trump has said about his political opponents or discussing a third term. Those same people, John Thune, Ben Shapiro, and James Comer, who was in one of those clips, and Lindsey Graham, would have been apoplectic. They would have been demanding, President Obama's resignation or the 25th Amendment being invoked, or probably secession, right, from the Union. So again, he's leading into this, pointing out that the MAGA movement is engaging in cognitive dissonance, and they are either lying to themselves or others, or perhaps both, to try to justify Trump's excesses, which are unique and unparalleled. We'll continue with this clip here.
And always the idea that if Trump really did cross the line, these Republicans say, oh, they would object. I asked Charlie Kirk about Trump, saying that he would like to put homegrown Americans in Salvadorian prisons. And Charlie said, if he were to do that, I wouldn't support it. But I think that's just a one-liner. Always trying out new material, workshopping premises like U.S. citizens can be taken off the streets and sent to overseas torture prisons without due process. Get it? When former Senator Ben Sasse was asked about the idea that Trump wouldn't leave in 2020, his comment was, he says crazy stuff. We've always had a peaceful transfer of power. It's not going to change. But it did change because it wasn't peaceful. And that's the problem with dictator jokes. They don't stay jokes. And
this is very important. I love the fact that he's bringing the receipts on this. So again, we all know that in this authoritarian cult of personality, there is no limiting principle. And Donald Trump, as I've said before, if he has one talent, he recognizes that he can get away with murder, perhaps not metaphorically speaking, with his base. He said, 10 years ago, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. And that seems to be a prophecy. That seems to be an intuition which is proven true. The Republican Party is more under Donald Trump's direct control than it has ever been. There's a reason that Bill Maher references former Senator Ben Sasse. Sasse, basically, he quit the Senate because I think he recognized he burnt his bridge with the Republican Party. This is a man who tried to cover for Trump, then eventually criticized him. And yes, Bill Maher, who predicted the January 6th insurrection fundamentally long before it happened by being perhaps the first public figure to say, I don't think Donald Trump will leave office peacefully if he loses, turned out to be right. And that's another reason why even with a president who did not inspire an insurrection or deny the outcome of a free and fair election, these comments would be inappropriate. They'd be inappropriate if President Biden said this, or President Obama said this, or President Bush, or President Clinton. But those people didn't say that because they had enough respect for the Constitution and elections to not only not make those jokes, but more importantly, not engage in the rhetoric and the actions of attempting to stay in power unlawfully. Donald Trump says these things, and he has a history of attempting to remain in power and overturn free and fair elections. So he has this idea that, he just says things. Well, no, he has less credibility, and there should be less charitability given to Trump than any American president on this topic. So it's good that he's bringing the receipts in this respect. We'll continue with this clip.
Attractive humans, and the MAGA crowd cannot be trusted to flirt with dictatorship. Not everyone who flirts cheats, but all cheating starts with flirting. I'm not in bed with Putin, he's just my work wife. Okay, but aren't we kind of past the flirting phase now? Sure, Trump's love letters to Kim Jong-un and his siding with Putin at Helsinki and the tanks in the streets on his birthday, all coquettish good fun. And the lock her up chants and the suing the press and calling them enemy of the people and saying shoplifters should get shot on sight. Innocent flirting, all of it. Except, I don't know. Now it seems a little less like just flirting and more like we're actually meeting every afternoon at the Motel 6.
Again, bringing the receipts in a pretty brutal fashion against Donald Trump. And these are things that are worth noting. Trump has not only sued members of the press, but now that he's back in office, he's urging his Federal Communications Commissions, which is led by a MAGA cultist named Brandon Carr, to pursue Trump's political opponents in the media. And Carr has done just that. Carr has protected Fox News and gone after networks that Trump has publicly attacked as well. The lock her up chants, people say, well, that was just rhetoric. Bullshit. Donald Trump did attempt to have Hillary Clinton prosecuted. He ordered the prosecutions and pressured the Justice Department in his first term to target his political opponents, like Hillary Clinton, like John Kerry. It's just that because no arrests were made, because it turns out these people did not commit crimes, it's a big thing, right? It's a big reason why they weren't prosecuted. The American people forgot about it. It's easy to forget about it, given all the terrible things that Donald Trump has said and done. But it did happen. Donald Trump explicitly campaigned in every presidential campaign, 2016, 2020, 2024, about jailing his political opponents. No Democrat has done that. None. So I'm sorry, Donald Trump is objectively far worse than any Democrat, morally, intellectually, in terms of his authoritarian impulses. And I love that Bill Maher is doubling down on this, and he continues to point this out despite his dinner with Trump. And he ends with this call to action to the MAGA movement.
I meant it to come out. What I mean is, it's your turn. You know things aren't going well, and the first 100 days has been, yes, a shit show. Show me you can be honest about that. Show me you're not just a MAGA cultist.
So there you go. This is good. Now, again, I just want to reiterate here, because I understand, I remember the last video about Bill Maher. I got some comments. They were like, why are you talking about Bill Maher? Listen, I get it. But Bill Maher, people pay attention to him. People cover his content. There's a reason that his dinner with Trump has generated so many headlines. People are interested in this. And again, I have my issues with Bill Maher when it comes to his attack on progressive politics, his, again, leaning into culture war nonsense that doesn't matter, I guess, in the grand scheme of things compared to other things. I think he gives that too much oxygen. But when it comes to being relentlessly critical of Donald Trump, Bill Maher has been pretty good. When it comes to recognizing that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are fundamentally different, Bill Maher has been pretty reliable. And we need as many voices as possible on the progressive left, and yes, more towards the center like Bill Maher, in this coalition attacking Trump. That doesn't mean that we can't criticize Bill Maher publicly or privately. We can. Again, I think that he failed to recognize that Trump was using him as a useful prop, or attempting to do so by saying, yeah, come over, let me charm you, let me win you over, as Trump has done to so many liberals and so many Democrats before. But I think it's also fair to note that at least so far, Bill Maher has resisted that impulse and has gone right back to attacking Donald Trump when he deserves it, which is pretty much all the time. So I think we should take heart in this and keep it, keep our assessment of Bill Maher according. If you don't like him because of the culture war issues, that's fine. But let's not pretend that he has gone MAGA. He has not. And he seems to be attacking MAGA as much as now than he ever has. So this is good news, and we'll continue to track his progress and see if he regresses at all, starts grading Trump on a curve, starts indulging in the enlightened centrist bullshit of like Piers Morgan. And if that happens, we'll definitely call it out. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.